Helen Keller was born on June 27, 1880, in a small town called Tuscumbia in the state of Alabama, in the United States of America, to a loving family who had no idea how special and strong their little girl would one day become, and although her parents, Arthur and Kate Keller, were happy and proud of their healthy baby, life soon brought them a great challenge that would change everything. When Helen was just 19 months old, she became very sick with a high fever and a strong illness that doctors at the time could not completely understand or treat properly, and although she survived the illness, something terrible happened afterward. Her parents slowly realized that Helen could no longer see with her eyes or hear with her ears, which meant she had become both blind and deaf before she was even 2 years old. Losing both sight and hearing at such a young age was very hard for Helen, who suddenly found herself in a dark and silent world without any way to understand the people or things around her, and because she could not hear language or see signs, she became frustrated, often throwing tantrums, screaming, or hitting when she was misunderstood, which made life very difficult, not only for Helen, but also for her family, who loved her deeply, but did not know how to help her learn or express herself. As Helen grew older, her need to communicate also grew stronger, and although she created a few hand signs of her own to show simple needs like water or eat, these were not enough to help her share her thoughts, feelings, or dreams, which made her even more upset and led her parents to search for a way to give her a chance to live a better life filled with learning and connection. One day, when Helen was around 6 years old, her mother read a story about another deaf and blind girl who had learned to communicate with help from a special school in Boston called the Perkins School for the Blind, and this gave her mother hope that maybe Helen could also learn. So they wrote a letter to the school asking for help, and soon the school sent a young teacher named Anne Sullivan, a woman who would completely change Helen's life forever. Anne Sullivan arrived at the Keller home in March 1887 with patience, kindness, and a deep understanding of struggle, since she had once been nearly blind herself and had worked hard to learn and improve her own life, which made her very determined to help Helen, even though teaching a child who could not hear or see was going to be very difficult and would require great effort and creativity. On her very first day, Anne gave Helen a doll and began teaching her by spelling the word DOLL into her hand using a method called the manual alphabet, where each letter is signed through touch. And even though Helen enjoyed the feeling of the signs on her hand, she didn't understand that each set of finger movements actually stood for words, or had any meaning, which made the beginning of their lessons slow and frustrating for both student and teacher. Anne remained patient and kept repeating the signs, showing Helen different objects and spelling their names again and again into her hand, even when Helen didn't seem to understand or got angry, because Anne believed that one day something would click in Helen's mind and she would understand that every object has a name and that these names can be learned through touch and language. The breakthrough moment finally came a few weeks later, during a lesson outside by the water pump, when Anne placed Helen's hand under the flowing water and spelled WATER into her other hand repeatedly, and suddenly, like a light turning on in the dark, Helen understood that the cool liquid pouring over her hand had a name, and that the signs Anne was making stood for that word, which filled her with excitement and joy as she realized that everything in the world had a name she could learn. From that day on, Helen's learning grew quickly, and she became incredibly eager to know the names of everything around her, from trees, animals, and people to ideas and feelings, and she worked hard every day with Anne, who stayed by her side like a second mother, teaching her how to spell, read Braille, a system of raised dots for blind people, and later even how to speak by feeling the vibrations of sounds and placing her fingers on people's lips and throats. Helen's mind was bright, and her heart was full of curiosity and determination, so she learned much faster than anyone expected, soon mastering reading and writing in Braille, learning to speak English with great effort, and even beginning to learn other languages like French, German and Latin, which showed the world that a person without sight or hearing could still achieve amazing things with the right support and strong will. Helen loved to read books in Braille and write letters to people all over the country, and she became famous for her intelligence and bravery. So much so that many newspapers wrote about her and many important people came to visit her, including the inventor Alexander Graham Bell, who helped connect her with the right people and supported her education in many ways, always believing in her potential. With Anne's help and the support of many friends, Helen went on to attend school and eventually college, where she studied very hard, becoming the first deaf-blind person in the world to graduate with a university degree when she finished her studies at Radcliffe College in 1904 at the age of 24, which was an incredible achievement at a time when very few people with disabilities were allowed to attend school at all. Helen wrote many books and essays during her life, starting with her famous autobiography, The Story of My Life, which she wrote while still in college, and which has since been read by millions of people around the world, sharing her journey of struggle, learning and triumph, and showing others that the human spirit can shine even in the darkest times. Throughout her adult life, Helen traveled around the world with Anne and later with other helpers after Anne became older and ill, and she gave speeches, met presidents and world leaders, and spoke out for people with disabilities, women's rights, workers' rights, and peace, always using her voice, not through hearing or sight, but through her words and actions, to fight for justice and kindness in the world. Even though she could not see the faces of the people she helped, and even though she could not hear the applause of the crowds who admired her, Helen continued to work and write until the end of her life, believing that her duty was to help others live better lives and to show the world that disability is not a curse or weakness, but just a different way of being human. Helen Keller passed away peacefully in her sleep on June 1, 1968, at the age of 87, after a long and meaningful life that touched the hearts of millions, and even today, more than 50 years later, people still remember her as a symbol of courage, strength, and the power of education, and love to change a person's life and even the world itself. Her story continues to inspire children and adults around the world, teaching us that no matter how difficult life becomes, with patience, hard work, and support, it is possible to overcome even the greatest obstacles and to live a life filled with purpose, joy, and hope for a better future for all people. And that was the amazing and inspiring story of Helen Keller, a woman who showed the world that nothing is impossible when you have courage, love, and the will to never give up. We hope you enjoyed learning about her life, her struggles, and her great success. Helen taught us that even in darkness, we can find light, and even in silence, we can still find our voice. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a kind comment to share your thoughts. And subscribe to our channel for more inspiring true stories and educational content. Thank you for spending your time with us. See you in the next video.